Welcome to the Economy of the Universe. I'm your host, Leon Clark, and welcome back to the Bastiat series, where we look at the works of Frederick Bastiat. Last week, we went through the parable of the broken window, and saw the necessity of looking at all economic consequences, not just those that are immediately visible. Today we are going to apply this lesson to considerations of war. This is not a suggestion that war is never justified. Oftentimes, war is necessary and just, nor is it a suggestion that no technological advancements have come out of military research and development. This is an examination of two fallacies: that wartime spending makes society wealthier, and that the destruction caused by war leads to economic growth. We often see times of war, such as World War II, as periods of great economic growth. Unemployment is essentially eliminated as people are called up to military service, and people who weren't previously in the workforce enter to ensure wartime production. While it is true that production increases, it is incorrect to say that during such periods the national wealth increases. Production and wealth are different concepts. War changes the allocation of resources. As land, labor, and capital are diverted from their peacetime production to wartime production, there are resulting shortages in the goods and services that we call wealth. That's why, in times of war, there is often rationing. Despite production increasing, the nation produces less of the goods and services that make society wealthier. So while it's accurate to say that reallocation of resources in wartime is necessary and production during wartime increases, it is also necessary to understand that in times of war, economies are far worse than during peacetime. It is also important to note here the huge debt that is often accumulated by going to war. This cost is not immediately visible, and therefore often ignored. Another common misconception is the idea that post-war booms are a sign of economic strength. It's important to remember that during a war, there is a decrease in production and consumption, so less wealth is generated in an economy. This wartime loss more than offsets the post-war boom. If an economy were to cease production and consumption for 5 years and then resume, it would undoubtedly look like a boom, and the backed-up demand would lead to unusually high levels of consumption. But one can hardly say that putting an economy on hold for 5 years is good policy, or makes up for what is lost in the 5 years of idleness. The second fallacy in post-war booms is just the broken window fallacy on steroids, and it also applies to considerations of natural disasters. After the destruction, the buildings that were destroyed must be replaced, so we see huge growth in construction, but just like the broken window, this is merely replacing destroyed wealth. Had it not been destroyed, the resources would have been spent on creating new wealth. No individual would be pleased if his home were destroyed and he had to liquidate his savings to rebuild it, instead of buying his first car, for example. For all the increase in resources diverted towards construction, there is a corresponding decrease in the resources allocated to other goods and services. To sum up, the fallacies associated with war are manifestations of the same mistake made by the crowd observing the broken window, seeing only what is immediately visible and failing to look beyond. Let's take a look at the 3 lessons from last time. 1. Society loses the value of things which are uselessly destroyed. Again, we see this lesson, yet on a much larger scale. Instead of a window being broken, whole cities are destroyed during war. 2. Everything has an opportunity cost. We see this lesson in the reallocation of resources during wartime and also on post-war reconstruction. These resources would otherwise have been better allocated in times of peace. 3. A fallacy can be exposed by taking it to its extreme. Here we show the extreme by applying a societal level fallacy to the individual. Would it benefit any single member of the society to have his food rationed, his home destroyed, and his savings depleted? Last episode, I warned that the broken window fallacy is perhaps the most prevalent, ubiquitous, and persistent in all of political thought. Instead of hitting a baseball through a window, raze to the ground every major city across the continent and watch economists and politicians bless the bombs for stimulating the economy. Once again, this is not an argument against war. There are wars that are justified and others that are not. But before going to war, it is important to examine and weigh many factors, but the fallacy that it will benefit the economy to go to war should never be one of them. I hope you liked this episode and that you're enjoying the Bastiat series. The next episode will be on the disbanding of troops and bureaucrats. Thank you.